We got an update on Uncle Dave, and everybody, he hit me at the wrong time last week. If you if you listened to the drive-through, you'll know that. But he used the phrase genius to describe Kenny Olivier. And I'd had all I could stand. I couldn't stand no more. I had my Popeye moment. I fired back at him. I said, what the fuck? And I'll tell you why I'm so upset about this in a few minutes. The basic reason I'm so upset about this. But then after the drive-through was done, he kept going. And he can't leave it alone because he's going to come up with his goddamn business trends and we do it every week and it's just so sad. It's just so sad that people can't keep up and they get out of touch. Here is the real fucking problem, folks. The real fucking problem. A lot of people are saying, Jim, you've known Dave for 35 years. You guys have been friends and you go off on him over one tweet. No, it was, I've had all I can stands. I can't stands no more because it wasn't just that tweet. It was the goddamn little pot shots, little sideways, little fucking elbows he's been giving me for months now that I've tried to ignore. And you and I have talked about this, Brian, is that we want to go full on fucking heel on Dave for his bullshit. And the most I've said, well, weed's legal in California. We tried to play it off. We tried to joke about it. We had him on the show here, a year ago or whatever, where we tried to just get him to say, Dave, just admit that the fucking dick spot is stupid. Just admit the Invisible Man is stupid. Just admit that these fucking guys are just stupid in some respect. Just admit something. He wouldn't do it. The best we could get, the dick thing shouldn't be on TV, but it works in that room. It gets over in that room or in that audience. NAMBLA and their fucking theories and priorities gets over to that audience in that room. And if you don't know what that is, folks, Google it.
Oh, Jesus. Don't Google that.
I'm not saying you should join it. I'm saying what they believe gets over in their room. That is not in any way an endorsement of it. That is an indictment of saying, well, for the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like, so it must be okay. And that's what he's been doing. But he's been taking the little pot shots and the little elbows in the ribs. He won't do it in the Observer because he knows I read the Observer. But he will do it on his audio. He'll mention my name because he knows I don't listen to my own audio, much less anybody else's, right? So he thinks he can get away with it there. And sometimes he even does mention my name in the Observer every once in a while. Lately, but for a while, it's just been the little things about, well, some people, they just don't understand the trends and the times change and they get out of touch and blah, blah, blah. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If suddenly eating cow shit while you're walking down Main Street became the fashionable thing, I'm still not eating no fucking cow shit. That don't mean I'm out of touch. That means I just don't like to eat cow shit because it's fucking stupid. And Dave's been taking these shots at me for a while because I will not roll over like a lot of other people and just say, okay, this is what this is now, so I guess I'm just wrong. No, I'm not. It's stupid. But since he's been taking those shots and it's been building, and finally he wrote that obituary on me over the chicken joke back in fucking November, and I told him off then privately and a little bit on the air, but even more so privately. And I was going to leave it alone, but he just can't stop. And when I see things like Olivier and Okada better than Flair and Steamboat, Olivier is a genius at match psychology, it just goes over some people's heads. Like anything that prissy prancing, sissy dancing, finger pointing, fucking doll wrestling, kid abusing, fucking Harpo Marx lookalike could possibly do would go over my head.
Well, let's not say kid abusing.
He's on fucking tape beating up 9-year-old children.
Okay. If that's what you mean, okay.
No, I don't mean he fucking diddles them like a fucking Catholic priest. I mean he's beating them up on tape, and people have no problem with this. Whether it's a work or not. Goddamn shit happens, even when you're a play wrestler like Olivier is. What happens if he potatoes a kid in the fucking face? Their bones aren't even formed yet. Just because some fucking weird Japanese people have some kind of goddamn sexual fetish over these small school children doesn't mean that it's ever going to get over in America, nor should it get over in America, nor should it be brought to America. And I don't know which one that I'm more honestly fucking offended by, the fact that he's doing this with children or that he's doing this to the wrestling business. It's like Jerry Seinfeld, that line one time when his dentist converted from Judaism to Catholicism. And Jerry went and complained to the priest. And the priest says, does this offend you as a Jew? He said, no, it offends me as a comedian. Now he can tell all the good jokes. I don't know whether I'm more upset that he does it to kids or he does it to the fucking wrestling business, but nevertheless. Dave's been taking, and then Dave said, I swear to God, Dave Meltzer said that Bobby Eaton was the Nick Jackson of his day. He's gone off the deep end and he can't fucking come back from it. And we talked about, is he scared he's going to lose some of his subscribers? Is he scared that the cool kids won't like him because he's old and cranky and he gives a shit because he wants to be liked? Dave has always wanted to be liked. I remember when Dave had a sense of humor. I remember when Dave had sense. But anyway, so we've had some more Twitter interaction, and I'm done with Dave Meltzer. Because Dave Meltzer is embarrassed that I've defended him as knowing what the fuck he was talking about for so long against other people who are also liars, the Bruce Pritchards and Eric Bischoffs of the world. They were lying about Dave for their own purposes. And I would point out that they were lying because they were talking about facts that he's reported. The problem is Dave has started to report his opinions as facts. And all the business trends and everything. McDonald's sells more burgers than anybody else. That doesn't mean they're any fucking good, and most of them aren't. But I would defend Dave Meltzer, and then Dave Meltzer comes back and makes me look like an idiot for defending him by saying obviously just batshit fucking insane shit like that. And you and I went back and forth. What is it? Is it, the cool kids, or is it the fucking subscribers or whatever? We got an email I did from a guy named Chet. If he's a subscriber to the Observer, I won't give his last name. He might get canceled. That may explain the problems that we're having with Uncle Dave. Would you like me to read it, Brian?
Sure.
All right, Chet says, by now much will have been written about the falling out / feud with Dave Meltzer. However, one thing that I've been somewhat surprised that nobody has ever mentioned seems to me like the elephant in the room. Dave Meltzer is clearly on the autism spectrum, and this influences every aspect of his personal psychology. Before anybody gets hot at me, it's a very well-written email, and I figured I'd give Chet the honor or the right to be heard. He says, I do not make this claim lightly or from an inexperienced position. I've enjoyed an unusual number of close relationships with autistic people throughout my entire life, going back to elementary school, have worked with them in a professional therapeutic capacity, and for almost 2 decades have been married to a woman with Asperger's syndrome. Dave has an unusually high degree of specialized knowledge, a niche area of interest, an extremely high tolerance for repetition, a desire to explore things at a level of granular detail alien to most people, and clear difficulties in certain social situations, especially in an environment such as Twitter. In fact, it would probably be more unusual for someone who could be described that way not to be somewhere on the spectrum. If I didn't have extensive experience with autistic people in my own life, I would be both baffled and annoyed by the way Meltzer treats others with his combination of seemingly condescending and yet easily offended responses, which frequently misread and or misportray the author's intent, even when it seems obvious to most people. However, because of said experience with ASD individuals, I know that he probably isn't being this way on purpose, and I feel like I can understand his motives more easily than most. Jim, I sympathize with your frustration over the way Dave acts. I see him quote tweeting the same patronizing sounding responses whenever someone mentions your name. Similarly, I believe there have been times that you went too far and hit Dave back too hard in exchanges. I do that, even though I understand why you would want to do so. I respect and admire him and believe he has contributed to the business in significant ways, but Dave is not a creator of wrestling, and he ultimately has limited emotional investment in it beyond its continued existence, as it appeals to him on a fundamental level that few non-ASD individuals can understand or relate to. Although both you and Dave could be considered obsessive in your appreciation and consumption of professional wrestling, Dave is the sort of person who will never stop liking it. no matter what form it takes, and will find something to satisfy him in almost any product that roughly meets the abstract criteria to be considered part of it. That's why he endlessly repeats the claim that all criticism of modern wrestling is the equivalent of criticism previous generations received, as if there will never be a point where increasingly unrealistic wrestling could alienate enough people to jeopardize the business as a whole. I could be wrong, but I would hazard a guess that a difference in the way he perceives and prioritizes the emotions of other people probably renders him immune to the cringeworthy acting and often illogical aspects of certain modern workers, instead preferring fast-paced matches where lots of stuff happens and there are endless callback spots to previous bouts that only people who watch and recall obsessively will remember, which is the only thing he ever seems to refer to when he says modern wrestling has psychology. In short, the same traits which make Dave an excellent historian and record keeper, as well as a tireless and incredibly consistent but idiosyncratic writer, also make him willing to accept and enjoy things that others would find nonsensical, pointless, and even irritating or offensive, and to interact with people with whom he disagrees in a manner that seems disdainful and superior. With that said, we should not perceive him being this way as something which could be easily changed, and certainly not through superior reasoning or argument. Rather, it is almost certainly a fundamental part of his own atypical psyche and perspective. I have seen many friendships involving an ASD individual be ruined under similar circumstances and feel bad watching what has happened play out. Although it may be difficult, I do believe that we should adjust our expectations and be willing to forgive them for acting in a way which, although it can be confusing, hurtful, frustrating, and many other things, is fundamentally not due to a deliberate choice they have made and which causes as many problems for them as it does for those in their orbit. Apologies for the painfully long and possibly completely inappropriate use of the drive-through address, but having decades of experience with people who are exactly like Dave and having observed his writing and behavior online for some time, seeing your public dispute with him finally crystallized some of those thoughts into this message. Very well written email. And it takes some of the heat off of Dave as not being able to help himself in that manner. But it doesn't take a lot of heat off of him with me because he's still knocking me and telling me I'm out of touch and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing when I'm looking at a shit sandwich and acting like it's being expected to act like it's a juicy cheeseburger. But what else is the explanation? I don't know.
Well, let me just say, well-written email. I'm not comfortable diagnosing Dave Meltzer here on the air.
I didn't ask you to.
Well, no, you didn't. But still, that was the tone of the email. I'll say a few things here. I think this is all rather unfortunate. And I think you're both right and you're both wrong in different ways. I think Dave's behavior on Twitter is... I don't know what the fuck he's doing, to be quite honest. He's condescending. He's patronizing.
Now, wait a minute. I know what people are automatically going to tune out what you're about to say unless I interject. They're saying he's talking about it. Dave's behavior on Twitter. Cornette tells people to go fuck off and die. Dave doesn't actually cuss people and tell them, fuck you, you're a fucking idiot. He just fucking lifts his nose up in the air like, well, you just don't understand because it goes over your head, which to me is even worse, especially when he's telling me shit that's going over my head about the wrestling business. Now, having said that and make plain that we're not talking about being an asshole, but being a condescending prick, go ahead.
It's weird because if you talk to Dave, and you've talked to him a lot more than me, but I've listened to lots of his talking as well, he's not like that. But all of a sudden, I don't know if it's because of the amount of characters you're allowed to have on Twitter, or if it's a business strategy, which some people say, or whatever it is, but there's something about him on Twitter that I really wish he was never on Twitter because he fights with people that have no followers.
I have never known Dave Meltzer in person or in any phone or personal interaction to ever do anything to be considered as rude. But Twitter's a different animal.
And with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega specifically, although not limited to them, and I've seen it with you, and I've seen it...
About 85%, though.
And I've seen it with you, and I've seen it with other people, and I've seen it with people, again, with no followers. There's something triggered where if you mention them, he has to jump in with a defense. Even if you're saying what you think of their work, he turns it to... I mean, I saw this past week with you, and I'll ask you here, because I'm I'm not sure. We do a lot of recording, so I don't remember every single thing. You've certainly been overly critical of their work in the ring. And you've also praised them at times, but it's mostly you've been very, very critical of their work.
Sooner or later, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Every once in a while, I'll say something good about them.
But Dave keeps pointing it back to your denying the facts about them being a draw, that it's said that you won't acknowledge that they are a draw. Have you said that they don't draw?
Well, okay, he makes a big deal out of, well, Cornette said they'd be out of business by April or off TNT by April. I've already said, I think, in this program, apparently it's just that the level of success for a television program is so fucking small now that TNT's happy with them. I didn't particularly fucking pay attention because I don't give a shit, but they're doing 60% of the audience that TNA was on Spike when everybody was saying TNA sucked. And they're doing 60% of that audience because everything's down now, I guess. But it's a, as we said, a smaller group of people. And I also said nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the average American. That's why Donald Trump is president. So some people, for the kind of people who like that kind of shit, that's the kind of thing those people like. But as far as a draw in what a draw is in my mind, having worked with so many of them, and as far as, I mean, and let's face it, he's talking about Omega. The Bucks are more popular with that audience than Omega because even now that audience is starting to realize, well, what the fuck? Omega was this big deal in Japan, but he's a simpering twit here and he's presented like a fucking milksop because he's in charge of it and he doesn't know what he's doing. So Omega is less over to that audience than the Bucks are, but yet Dave's goddamn Mount Rushmore of wrestling suddenly has Kenny Omega on it for some reason. How, and this email to me explains how that you can watch this fucking sissy ballet dancer pointing his fingers at everything and hopping around like he's, somebody on Twitter said, like he's trying to push out a 7-year-old turd making faces. And you can think that's good wrestling somehow because, oh, he went for the same move that he did in a match 7 months ago in Japan, but it was countered this time. What psychology?
But you see, that's but that's one of the things I think that letter got right. I think Dave genuinely likes, I don't think there's any pretense there. I think he genuinely likes that style of wrestling more than anything else. He likes nonstop high spots and tons of near falls and throwbacks to minutia from other matches. I think that is the style of wrestling he likes, but I think sometimes from what I've seen on Twitter and the Nick Jackson, Bobby Eaton thing that you brought up before, I noticed that the other day, is sometimes he says something and he leaves out the words when it's not a statistic that's based on any sort of business analysis. He leaves out the word, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or the words, in my opinion.
Well, it's this way. Well, can't you see that Bobby Eaton was his era's Nick Jackson? What the fuck? Bobby Eaton could take one fucking right hand, pickle Nick Jackson between the eyes, and it would make him grow all the hair back he's fucking lost. What the fuck? The Midnight Express would have been hard-pressed to get a match out of the Young Bucks that anybody would find believable because of their fucking size and appearance alone. If they did what they were told to do, then they could have a good match with somebody like the Midnight Express. But I just...
But
or Tully and Arn, or the Steiners, or any other great tag team. It just...
But I've seen him all of a sudden say things, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have all the tweets in front of me, obviously. Things like, well, the Midnight Express were the spot monkeys of their day.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he wants to get a little smartass. He got smartass with me. Like, he ain't been around me long enough to know that wasn't going to fucking work. The Midnight Express never worked with the Invisible Man. The Midnight Express never had competitive matches with children. The Midnight Express didn't do fucking dance routines in the middle of a goddamn match in conjunction with their opponents. The Midnight Express didn't work with sex dolls. The Midnight Express didn't use invisible hand grenades. Nobody did. And this goes to Omega, threw his fucking wig into the goddamn Twitter ring this week and got slapped down. He's a boring douchebag even when he's trying to cut a promo on somebody. Just a boring, personality-less douchebag that likes to sit around and play video games and jack off to Japanese schoolgirls is Kenny Olivier. And he had the nerve to say, well, Cornette's followers are a bunch of mouth breathers with zero class. And he got some shit for that too. But let me tell you something, you piece of shit. I consider what you did even worse than what Eddie Mansfield did. But back in those days, when there were men who had respect, self-respect for themselves and respect for their profession, men involved that wouldn't go along with this bullshit, Eddie Mansfield never worked in the business again except for himself. And if Eddie Mansfield had wandered into any locker room in America during the summer of 1985, chances are at least one guy in there would have broke one of his fucking legs. And I would pay $100,000 to see that today. Because he was a piece of shit that betrayed his fucking brothers and betrayed the business that he was allowed in. And that's exactly what you've done too. Except you've gotten all of your brothers involved in it, Olivier, where they want to fucking betray the business too. Here's the thing. Years ago, people who hated wrestling said that it was play fighting and it was silly and stupid and phony. Now, the fans, in quotation marks, and the wrestlers, in quotation marks, are saying the same thing. They're saying the same things now as the people who hated wrestling used to say, the people that we used to get in fights with, the people that Haku used to bite the nose off of. Now, the goddamn wishy-washy fucking piece of shit wrestling, I can't call them wrestling fans, cosplay wrestling fans, and these goddamn goofs, kids, grade school children that have been allowed in the business. Now it's all inclusive. Oh, thank God it's not like back in the kayfabe days. It's all inclusive and everybody gets to play. No, everybody don't get to play, you motherfucker. Dave Meltzer, Kenny Olivier, and all these stupid fucking pussies that have been allowed in the wrestling business are normalizing to the fans the idea that this is all bullshit and just something to be laughed at. And that is the bone of contention with me and Dave. That's the bone of me in contention with me and Olivier. He should have had his legs broken for the sex doll matches and the kids matches, and he should never have been booked in this country. It's not what?
When did the standard change?
I don't know.
In terms of like, it works for the room, so it's okay. Like the Ultimate Warriors matches in 1989 never got 5 stars. They were.
Yes, it worked for those rooms because it was mass hypnosis by Vince McMahon when he was at the height of his creative powers. Warrior was over. There's never been a worse wrestler in the world, but he was over.
And he sold more merch than any of these guys, in a 1 year period of time. So why did the standard change where that was not good, but a Joey Ryan is okay because it works for that?
Because the Ultimate Warrior was never friendly to Dave and told Dave how much that he really enjoyed his work. They have normalized this to the fans, the idea that this is a bullshit, phony Saturday Night Live sketch and something to be laughed at, and I will never go along with it. I will never go along with that. I don't have to. I've got the platform, the verbal skills, and the resources to tell these motherfuckers what I think of them and remind everybody what dipshits they are, and that's my hobby, and I'm going to do it for the rest of my life because I enjoy it. And I'm tired, once again, of having these fucking idiots say, well, he's out of touch because he doesn't like the idea that my girlfriend, who's a wrestler too, took her bloody tampon out and shoved it in somebody else's face in a cheap dive bar and called it pro wrestling. How dare he be so out of touch? Fuck you. I can afford to be out of touch.
But you see, what's out of touch? Like, is the 60-year-old guy who goes to a Fleetwood Mac concert out of touch? Or is the 60-year-old guy who gets a new wardrobe and goes to see the newest Korean boy band out of touch? They probably point to each other and say, you're out of touch, but who's out of touch? Like, what's out of touch? Because you don't accept something that, I don't know. It's just, I think Dave on Twitter, I think Twitter's the worst thing to happen to Dave. I think Dave presents too many of his opinions like they're facts. He condescends anyone who questions any of these things. And it dilutes the actual facts that he presents because he presents his thoughts as being firm facts that can't be questioned. He always needs the last word. I think his whole thing was unfortunate. He has been taking shots at you for a while. I mean, I even remember he had Kenny Omega.
I've been having people email me and say, why is Dave Meltzer knocking you on these audio shows that I don't fucking hear?
Well, he had Kenny Omega on, I remember a long while back I listened to, and the interview was over, and basically he stopped the interview from ending and said, hey, talk about Jim Cornette. It was basically, here's your chance.
Okay, now here's your opportunity.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. And Olivier's fucking deal is, well, I know Jim has to do this to stay relevant for his followers. He has to say these things so he can make money. Let me tell you something, you motherfucker. I fucking hate your fucking guts. I think of you just like I used to think of those fucking marks that would hit the ring on me in Mid-South Wrestling, and I would brain them with a tennis racket and kick them in the fucking teeth. And I think of you even worse, even less, you piece of shit, because of what you've done to the business that I've spent so long trying to give a good image to, trying to make people believe in. And you think that I'm making it. See, he knows I'm not making it up. That's the thing. That's what he says in public. But enough people that know me are now working there that they know exactly what the fucking deal is. I apologize to the cosplay wrestling fans, and I apologize to you, Kenny Olivier, that I'm not either in dire financial need that I have to go along with this. I don't have, like I said, such an ego that I've got to be on TV. I just don't give a fuck about my principles or the wrestling business. And sure, go ahead and let these fucking assholes do whatever they want. That I will participate in stupid horse shit for money, or whatever the reason is that people involve themselves in this. I apologize that I don't have to do that. But you know as well as I do, Kenny Olivier, that I really think this. I really feel that. I would like to see somebody with a half a lick of respect for the wrestling business take you in the ring and grab you around the neck and squeeze your britches full and pop your fucking eyes out of your fucking head and send you back to Japan so you could go scrub the goddamn floors at the fucking peep show booths where you probably met Riho.
He can't get into Japan, but
oh, I forgot. They won't let him in Japan. I can't get in Canada. That's where he's from. They'll let anybody in Canada. I can't get, but he can't go to Japan. Maybe you ought to just go fucking home, Kenny.
Honestly, Dave is intelligent, and we're discussing Dave's thoughts and opinions here. Every time I've heard Kenny Omega, he's got his head up his ass, and he's a fucking idiot. I wouldn't worry too much about Kenny Omega's thoughts about anything. He's an idiot.
Well, exactly. I've said before, every time I read something he said, every time I hear something he says, it's not even about wrestling. It's about we couldn't be more opposite people. I would cut my throat if I had to be in the same room with this fucking clown. And he knows that, and that's why he goes out and tries to say, oh, Cornette just says that stuff. No, I'm not making any of this shit up, Kenny. Nobody's that good a worker. Laurence Olivier couldn't act like this, pal. So if him or anybody else thinks I'm so bitter because I'm not included in your little pussy-ass, sissy, all-inclusive pro wrestling, you apparently ain't been paying a lot of fucking attention. So that's the way it is.
And the other thing Dave does that I've noticed lately that I think is a bit disingenuous is when someone does question, and sometimes I got to admit, some people come to him with some ignorant shit on Twitter, and he still answers them, which I don't know why. And he says, and again, it's patronizing and it's condescending with, I want you to learn. I'm just here to teach. I want you to learn. But when someone will bring up something and will go, well, they sold more tickets in, faster period of time than this. Look, the Beatles never sold that in 30 minutes anywhere.
That's when you used to have to drive down to the fucking box office and pick the tickets up in person.
You can't compare. There are certain things you can compare to the past in wrestling, and there's certain things that aren't comparable because situations and platforms and everything else has changed. And I think that was another thing the letter brought up. Anything you bring up to him, he says, well, people were making these complaints 20 years ago. People said Flair and Steamboat did too much. People said the Midnight Express were spot monkeys, whatever it is. I think that's where it gets a little bit ridiculous. That's where you're working overtime trying to justify this stuff.
He refuses to address the meat of the matter. It's not about anybody doing too many spots. For fuck's sake, if they want to put themselves in a wheelchair and just have matches where nobody can follow them, then that's fine. It just devalues what everybody else does because they've already done everything and nobody else can get any emotion out of it. But no, the Midnight Express, as I mentioned, never did the Invisible Man. So fuck you. And it's insane to me. And like I said, okay, you want to talk about facts? Here's facts. The All Elite Wrestling audience on TNT on Wednesday nights in the United States of America is about 2.5 times what the Memphis Saturday morning wrestling show from the studios of Channel 5 used to draw as far as ratings. Those are facts, are they not? We have these things written down. Is it a fact?
I think it's a fact, yes.
I know it's a fact, and I can show you the fucking figures. The goddamn wrestling show in Memphis used to outdraw the World Series game, for fuck's sake. And now this is what it is. We have come to this where it's become such a small-time fucking niche product that even, I said last week, I think, on the show, they're not impressing me with what draws they are because I was on a television program on Saturday night, every Saturday night, that used to draw the equivalent audience as Raw and SmackDown and All Elite Wrestling combined. Which means to me, these people ain't fucking draws. The guy that makes all those fucking baskets in the playground basketball game may be hell down in Portland, in the neighborhood of fucking Portland and Louisville. But if you put him next to Wilt Chamberlain, his stats don't look that good. That's all I'm saying.